All right, 1 2 1 2 in the place to be. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing out there? Thank you for joining me in conversation and having some fun today in another edition of the Dungeon Show. Appreciate y'all. And yeah, man, we are putting these shows together. And like I said before in the past, when I start preparing for the shows and I have so much information to talk about, that's usually a pretty good signal that we're going to have a great show. So I am excited about that. I'm interested in getting your thoughts and views on some of the things that are transpiring in the world of sports and entertainment. And while at the same time, just acknowledging that we need sports so much right now because there's so many more important things happening in the world. And to have sports as a diversion is something that I can really appreciate, and I'm sure many of you do as well. So I'm gonna leave that where it is, and just kind of reflect on what has transpired over the past week or so. The Indiana Pacers went down to the OKC Thunder in Game 7 of this year's NBA championship, 103-91. I'm going to give OKC all the props in the world because they certainly deserve it. But in many ways, I was actually more impressed with Indiana. And I can speak to that. Off the top, you know, their first or second best player got hurt, and they still battled. I've been a TJ McConnell fan for a long time, and that level of respect has increased exponentially during this entire playoffs because he's been just phenomenal. Won't be too long before we see him on a sideline as a head college coach or an NBA head coach at some point. So we could talk about the game. There's a lot there. OKC played well enough to win. When you look at their stats, I don't know if their stats really speak to what we actually saw on the court, but I really enjoyed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's 26 years old. He won't be 27 until July 12th. And in a time in which the NBA really needs new ambassadors, you know, to carry the league forward, he's one of those guys. He's not only a great player, but he's great for the game. He's great for the NBA brand. He's great for that city and for that community. And the irony is, the chance of OKC repeating next year has to be less than 50%. You might disagree, but I think I can build a pretty good argument why you're going to have some bloodthirsty teams next year trying to win the title, win the NBA title next year. But it's going to be fun. There's no doubt about that. The one good thing about OKC is you can't take it back. It took 17 years to get it. Sam Presti, the architect of that organization, has been there for all 17 years, and he has methodically taken his time to build a wonderful team that has star-studded players to help them be competitive for a long period of time. So we can talk about the NBA championship series if you want to. That's going to be one of the major topics. NBA free agency is certainly on the board. The NBA draft starts on Wednesday. And the trade market is already starting to percolate. Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant is playing for his what team? Let me see. Seattle, OKC, the Warriors, Brooklyn, Phoenix, Houston. They need to win a title because that's not the lineage that you want an all-time great player to have. I'm going to speak about that later on in the show for the first time. Kind of a what-if scenario. What if Kevin Durant never left OKC? Would they have won a championship the following year? I think they might have won. But that's history, and it just kind of goes into decision making and how one shift to the left or the right can literally change history forever. So we're going to talk a lot of basketball tonight. The Golden State Valkaries, Coach Natalie Nakase, I call her Coach K. She's Coach of the Year. I mean, let's just get that out the way. To me, if their trajectory continues the way that it is and they finish 500, she should win Coach of the Year. But they want more than that. They don't want to finish 500. They want to make the playoffs. And I love watching the Valkaries play. They play kind of like the Indiana Pacers, you know, without the superstar. They just have a bunch of dogs from top to bottom. And one of the traits of an excellent organization is when a new player comes in, they immediately assess the vibe of the team, how the team operates. And you can either buy into that philosophy or you cannot. And if you don't, you're not going to be there that long. Think about every player that comes into the Valkaries organization, how they just pick up and start playing exactly like the people who are already there. So, pretty impressed with them. We're only a month away from, not even a month. We're literally like, 3 weeks worth from NFL camps opening up? I love the fact that the 49ers have zero drama this year. Zero. So we could talk about everything. I did review a movie that I really enjoy for a lot of different reasons. I'm going to talk about that. And I went to an event that's called the Bronx Revolution, the birth of hip hop. And it was kind of a history lesson for people who may or may not know about hip hop. I knew about it, obviously, growing up in New York. And it was a love letter to hip hop as well. I went to something that had break dancers, a video storytelling component to it. It was hosted by Grandmaster Caz and Chirac, two of the original MCs. They actually do a morning radio show on Rock the Bells Radio, satellite radio on LL station, and got an opportunity to chop it up with Grandmaster Caz, for about a minute or two, and just show gratitude to him. And the cool thing about Grandmaster Caz, there's a story behind that. I'm sure many of you know, but I might repeat it later on. He's one of those old school cats that can still rap, and was dope then, and he's dope now, and I love that. Because it speaks to how far ahead of the game Grandmaster Caz was. And Chirac is dope. Her pipes, her voice is incredible. So couple that with the fact, that I had a studio session Saturday as well. So I was in the booth in the studio. Got pretty close to finishing one song, and another song, we just kind of laid some stuff down. But I love making music, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. But I want to talk about the NBA championship series because we thought it would be a dud, and it certainly was not. It was a competitive series. But it brings about a larger discussion about why we love sports. And the reason why I love sports is because think of all the great authors in the world, right? Past, present, and in the future. The sports entity is the greatest storyteller of all. And I love stories. So I'm a big sports fan. All right, my name is Frank Red. How y'all doing out there? Thank you for joining me in conversation. If you're doing so for the first time, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the show. Help a brother out, help the station out, help the podcast out. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We've got a long way to go. I'm excited about this summer because I'm doing some things myself to try to help the show. But if you like what you're hearing, in the hip-hop community, the best promotion is still word of mouth as far as I'm concerned. So tell somebody about it. Hit the like button and subscribe to the show. All right? Thank you. And my name is Frank Red. Let's go out. I'm going to say what's up. I always start off with the great Vicky. Thank you, Vicky, for supporting me. I appreciate you. Vicky says, hi, Frank. How are you? The Valkaries win. They are a good team. Congratulations, OKC. I'm glad the series went 7. Yeah, me too. SGA says, hi, Frank. How you doing, brother? And I am doing fantastic tonight. I am doing wonderful. Aussie Rules. What's up, brother? How you doing? I appreciate you. And I also want to address the fact that I said that I was going to do a live broadcast of the Valkaries and the Indiana Fever. And that didn't happen because my summer league coaching responsibility started. So I was coaching on that night, watching the game at a sports bar until my game started. But I will do a live broadcast, but I couldn't do it on that night because I was coaching. So word is bond. So I like to maintain any commitment that I make. Let's go out and talk to Andrew the GOAT. He says, are the New York Liberty going to be fine? It looks like they're falling apart, back-to-back losses. No, I don't think so. I think that the league is competitive, and I don't know who they lost to in the previous game, but, you know, Jonquel Jones got hurt again. And Jonquel Jones is one of their top 3 players. And one of the things that we've noticed, Andrew, is the WNBA has grown by leaps and bounds, but it's still a league that lacks depth. And it's interesting because that's the reason why the Valkaries are so good. While the Valkaries might not have top-tier talent, although Kayla Thornton is going to be an all-star, they have depth that a lot of these other teams don't have. You know, I was watching the Las Vegas Aces today, and their lack of depth is astonishing. Now, they got the young rookie from Alabama who's starting to play well, but they don't have a lot of depth. And as good as the Liberty are, they have depth. They just, you know, they're playing against good teams. The Liberty will be fine. Trust me. So didn't you see, let me hold on. Didn't see your live stream of Valkyries. Oh yeah, I just spoke to that, Aussie Rules. Yeah, I didn't do it because I was coaching in a Pro-Am game. So that sucked because I wanted to do it. Vicky says, that's why Steph is so impressive and special. Staying with one team his whole career doesn't happen very often. Yeah, I agree with you, Vicky. And I think the other thing that's even more impressive to me about Stephen is, and maybe it's because of his father and his mom, who were both high-level athletes. His brother's a pro. But he understands that when you are one of the top players, right, you're really not a part, you're really a part of management. You're a part of something that's bigger than yourself. You're not showing up, playing, and then getting your check. No. Stephen Curry understands the role that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and before them, Julius Erving, Tim Duncan, you know, all these great players were ambassadors of the game. That's a good question. I would like to ask you, who do you consider in the past or present, who has been a great ambassador of the game? And let's stick to the NBA. Who's a great ambassador? Because I look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and to me, that's what he brings to the table. As good a player as he is, it's his professionalism, his perspective on his role in the game, to me, is what's most impressive. Because to me, I don't think OKC is going to win next year. I don't. I think the league is so darn competitive, and it makes me appreciate, again, what teams of the past were able to do, what the Warriors have been able to do, what the Lakers have been able to do. You know how hard it is to win back-to-back? Don't even think about three-peating. Very difficult. Interesting you say that, Vicky. Vicky says, have you watched the Big Three, 3-on-3 basketball? I watched some of it today on CBS. And actually, I'm being totally honest, Vicky. I took some years off from the Big Three because it wasn't as interesting to me. I'm watching a lot of guys who I didn't know. But now, there's been an influx of guys who I do know. Joe Johnson, Born Ready, Lance Stevenson, so many popular players of the past from the NBA that are still actually good players. So yeah, I mean, so far, I think the Big Three is off to a good year. I don't know if Q and his co-partners looked at it and said, you know what, we need to do a better job acquiring talent. But the Big Three is pretty entertaining. I watched it today, and they need to be because the WNBA is entertaining. If you're a sports fan right now, you're pretty pleased with the assortment of activities that are out there for you to consume. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on the Big Three? Asiru says, what will Halliburton's recovery be like? Can career continue to rise? Oblique career ahead. I think he's going to come back and be fine. I mean, it feels like he has a ruptured Achilles. If that is the case, he might not play next year. If it's less than that, then maybe he will. But I don't really trip when players get hurt. I don't, because I played and it's part of the game. You know, I mean, you play 100+ games like Indiana has, you're probably going to get hurt, especially when you consider that he's probably compensating, you know, for his thigh bruise. And, you know, Achilles are kind of freak injuries, but they happen. Heal up. That's why you go out and get the biggest contract that you can get. He has a large contract, probably worth $175 million. He had a great year. I don't want him to rush back. If he has to be out next year, be out next year. You know, but he's going to make a full recovery. Thank God he's so young. And Indiana, as resilient as they were, as exciting as they were, as good as they were, they still had to be miraculous to make it to the finals. I thought this series, and you can check the tape, you know, I thought the series would go at least 6 games. It went 7. When people were saying this team was going to get swept, I was like, what, seriously? Not going to happen. The coach is too good for that. The players are too professional. So I tip my hat to Indiana. I have empathy for Tyrese Halliburton, but I'm not pulling out any violins. You know what I'm saying? I mean, injuries are a part of the game. It sucks, but it is what it is. And sometimes the second act is really more interesting than the first act. As great a player as he is becoming, you know, I want to see how he recovers from this. And I want to see how his team responds. They might not even make the playoffs next year. Aussie says, Frank, no worries, Mr. the Valkaries fever game. Hope you can have a Fever of Valkyrie live show soon. All good. No, I will. I am. I definitely will. And Vicky has some ambassadors of the game that she remembers. Magic, Michael Jordan, Dr. J. Yeah. You know, I can relate to that. But I wish San Francisco would have a 3-on-3. You know what's interesting about that, Vicky? Joe Lacob is a big-time sports fan, but he's also really focused on business. And the Big Three has been in Oakland before, and I got to think if they can continue to put forth a solid product, then there's no reason why they shouldn't come to the Bay Area again, possibly in San Francisco. I don't know. Unless there's some type of conflict with the NBA, which I don't think it is, it would be interesting to see it and see how well it would be supported. The Achilles is a 2-year injury. Sometimes one, depends. Really depends. The idea of him coming back before the calendar year of 2026, that's not going to happen. They're talking about Jason Tatum coming back maybe after January, and he got hurt, 6 weeks ago? He's already had surgery. And we don't know the specifics of his injury yet. So, I'm going to pause on that, but it looked like a Achilles tear. I don't know. Hopefully I'm wrong. Are you serious, Vicky? Vicky says, I heard Doc to the Knicks. Doc Rivers, right? Over the candidates that they have mentioned, Mike Brown and Taylor Jenkins, I'll take Doc Rivers. I would take Doc Rivers. A lot of people don't like Doc. I mean, Doc is one of those guys who has had a lot of opportunities. And, the world's not fair. I mean, let's state the obvious. The world is not fair. It's not Doc Rivers' fault. Doc Rivers has done a good job. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And he knows how to play the game. From Milwaukee's perspective, seriously, if Milwaukee really cared about other things beyond the dollars, number one thing is profitability, they would take a look at maybe trading Giannis. This is Giannis's 11th year. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame as a Milwaukee Buck. He's going to be revered as a Buck for the rest of his career, for the rest of his life. Why not do something for him and kind of reset? Did you know that Walt Clyde Frazier, my favorite Knick of all time, ended his career playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers? No, you probably didn't know that. Patrick Ewing played for the Seattle Supersonics at the tail end of his career. John Starks played for the Warriors. Michael Jordan played for the Washington Wizards. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a business. And a lot of times I wish organizations would take the emotion out of it, with the exception of Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is one of the few players that you look at and you say, no, I don't ever want to see him in another uniform. But at the same time, Joe Lacob has made the commitment to Stephen that money is not an issue. They're always going to spend money to try to provide an excellent group of players around him. Maybe not championship level, but to the extent that they can be respectable. Milwaukee? Come on. What are they going to be next year? 500, maybe? Aussie Rules says, KD for Houston's Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, first-round pick, and 5 second-round picks. Yeah, I like it. I mean, maybe Phoenix should have got more. I doubt it. I give Houston a lot of credit because I thought that Jabari Smith was going to be a part of that package. And they didn't trade him. I think in the playoffs, he showed them how good he was and how valuable he was. And they pulled that deal off without getting rid of Jabari Smith. And that was genius for me. From Phoenix's perspective, they got 2 starters, although I think Jalen Green is kind of a placeholder. I don't think he's going to be there long term. Or maybe they would consider trading Devin Booker. I would trade if I'm Devin Booker. If I'm Devin Booker, I want to go to a team that's going to be good. If I'm Devin Booker and we can make the dollars work, I want to go to the Warriors. I really do. I want to go to the Warriors. If I'm Phoenix, I'm like, yo, what about Jonathan Kuminga? Give us Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and maybe a first-round pick in a couple of years from now. You can have Devin Booker. Not absurd at all. I'm doing that. I'm making that happen. Steve Kerr loves Devin Booker. Loves him. You know, Steve Kerr arguably has gotten more out of Devin Booker than anybody when he's played on all the Olympic teams, the world teams. He would fit perfectly in the Warriors system. And a guy like Jonathan Kuminga could go down to the desert with a Jalen Green and a nucleus of other young players and get off and have fun and develop and maybe follow a trajectory where he becomes an all-star caliber player. I would love that. I would love that. I just thought of it. But I think you can make the dollars work. If I'm Devin Booker, you know, yeah, they love him. He's Mr. Phoenix, but I would want out of there. You're just going to waste your years. Brad Beal is not going to be there. They're going to buy Brad Beal out. Everybody knows that. Steve-O! What is up? He says, you blame Halliburton or the medical staff? I blame nobody. It's sports. You get hurt. You know, how many people have ruptured their Achilles? It's a part of basketball. Think about how many games these guys play, Steve-O. This is, what, 100+ game? You know, the cool thing is he has time on his sides. I mean, off the top of my head, I could probably do even more. But Bernard King came back from a ruptured Achilles to become an all-star for the Washington Bullets at the time. You know? Dominic Wilkins, the human highlight film. You know, he ruptured his Achilles. He came back and became an all-star, averaged over 21 points a game. You know, so it happens. SGA, Frank is the GOAT. Really, Emma? Thank you. Vicky, put Buddy in that trade instead of Moody. Yeah, Vicky, you know what? They might would have to use Buddy for the money. But if you're Phoenix, you want a Moses Moody. You know what I'm saying? You want a young... Moses Moody is one of the great young ambassadors of the NBA. What a wonderful young man. You know? It's a great dude. He gets it. But you see his parents, true. This is true. Somebody put out a tweet about 2 or 3 weeks ago talking about Moses Moody. And I responded to it with a comment and a like. Do you know his mom liked my tweet about her son? Class act. That family's awesome. They get it. So that tells you it doesn't matter where you come from. This guy comes from Arkansas, one of the smallest states in the United States. And he is class personified. And he gets the professionalism. He came in the league when he was like 19 years old, dealing with all of the chaos around involving the Warriors, the punches, and this. This kid's like 19, 20 years old. Didn't miss a beat. That's why the Warriors paid him. I'm a big Moses Moody guy. Always will be. Okay, Steve-O, you said, but he was already injured a few days ago. All right. So think about this, Steve-O. You're Tyrese Halliburton, an Olympic player. You view yourself as being one of the top players in the league. Whether or not you are is debatable. In Game 6, you actually played well. You know, you had a solid game in Game 6. You got hurt in Game 5. Are you not going to play? You're going to allow a doctor or somebody else to talk you out of playing in Game 7 when you played in Game 6? No, you're not going to do that. That's why, Steve-O, you got to get the money. Because the likelihood of you getting injured is probable. You know, it's not zero. It's far from zero. So charge it to the game. The NBA has insurance policies on all of their players, every last one of them, because they get hurt. The game is unforgiving. And, you know, I take that bet 10 out of 10 times. I'm not sitting out. I think Halliburton was right there. He's like, I'm playing. Monty Watts, how you doing, sir? Thank you for joining the program. Hopefully you've hit the like button and you subscribe to the show. If not, if you like what you hear, then maybe at some point you will. But it's a pleasure meeting you. Great night for Canadian basketball. Absolutely. Don't think that it's going unnoticed. They flashed up the Canadian Olympic team. You think that they don't have their sights on challenging for a gold medal in 28? Oh, they do. They do. And it is a great night for Canadian basketball. Lou Dort, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. It is awesome. Rembrandt, what's the guard on Indiana? He's also from Canada. Yeah, it's awesome. It's taking Canada some time, but think about this. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. But our perspective of Canadian basketball players visually was Steve Nash and Leo Rautins, who once played at Syracuse. That was our visual. That's how, I don't say we were ignorant, I would say we were uninformed. But this new wave of basketball players coming from Canada, the Andrew Wiggins of the world, who, you know, was really one of the first big players. He was the #1 player in the country in high school. These are people of color. These are black guys, you know. I want to see a great Canadian player. And Edie is from Canada. They are producing some players. They really are. And everybody who talks about how the United States is losing its position in the world of basketball, I say that's cap. To me, it's cap. First of all, most American players don't go to other countries to go to high school to develop. All those players still come to the United States. All of them. Shea, his cousin, all of these players. Andrew Wiggins, we're still king when it comes to basketball. Thank you, SGA. Yeah. Andrew Nimhard. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Thank you. All right. Cuz, what's up, Cuz? Cuz 1998. Thank you for joining the program. Miami and Chicago are rumored to have interest in Kuminga, especially Miami since they lost out on KD. Your thoughts on either of those teams and what players the Dubs could realistically get? All right, I'm going to start with Chicago. I think that Chicago would be awesome for Jonathan Kuminga. And I'm going to say that because of how Billy Donovan loves offense and how one of the things that he likes to do is give his players a lot of room to experiment and to find their games. So he would play a lot of minutes as long as he played defense, as long as he was a team-oriented guy. Billy would put him out there, and I think he would do very well in Chicago. So Chicago's a good fit because they're going to play up and down. They were the 4th-ranked offensive team in the NBA. From the Warriors' perspective, they could get the center in return, and they could get Kobe White. Chicago, I don't believe they want to pay Kobe White. I don't think so. I think, he's going to probably rescind his contract after this year. He'll be a free agent. And they don't want to pay him. They don't want to pay him more than $20 million. I think it's easier for you to accept less in your new team as opposed to, accepting less maybe than you think market value is from a team that has developed you. So if the Warriors could get the center, who I'm not in love with, what's it, Zubac? What's his name? It's not Zubac. What's his name? Help me out. But he and Kobe White, I think, would be okay. Kobe White would be really good at Steve Kerr's offense. He's a catch and shoot guy. He can play some point. He can score. So Chicago's good. If the Warriors really don't believe in Kuminga that much, I think Chicago's a decent place. Miami, Pat Riley's not going to give you what you want. He's not. The Warriors want Bam Adebayo. They're not giving up Bam Adebayo. They're not. They're going to give up Jaime Jaquez Jr., who I love. I don't love him. I like him. Maybe a pick and maybe another guard. And the Warriors are like, no, I don't think so. That's why all of the noise about Kuminga going somewhere else came to a halt, because when they started to scan the market in terms of what they were going to get back for Kuminga, it was radio silence. So it was like, well, we're not going to get this guy away. We don't have to. We don't have to. The Devin Booker thing, to me, makes a lot of sense. Because the idea of Phoenix rebuilding in a time span that doesn't waste Devin Booker's quality years is highly unlikely. They're going to be rebuilding for the next 3 to 5 years. He doesn't have 3 to 5 years to kind of just sit around and watch guys develop. He wants to win a championship. Don't blame him. Monty says, I'm torn. I was a Sonics fan before we got the Grizzlies. Hard to cheer for the Thunder as a franchise. Happy for OKC fans. Well, let's say this. Monty, fans always get screwed. All right? But the reality was, back in the day, the ownership of Seattle and potential owners, and maybe it was the city, I don't quite remember now, it was 17 years ago, but they kind of got into this little heated battle with David Stern. And, at one point, the new owner, it was actually Schultz. I think Howard Schultz was kind of involved in that, the owner of Starbucks. They wanted Seattle to build a new arena. They ultimately built the arena anyway. And the Seattle Storm, filled that arena. But they didn't want to do it for the Supersonics. The owner of OKC came in, Clay, and allegedly stated with his fingers crossed he wasn't going to move the team. And literally overnight, they were in OKC. That's not the OKC fans, Seattle fans. They were out of that conversation. That was really about ego and business, and it sucks for fans. Now, what I want is for Seattle to get that expansion team, because they have a great fan base. Their fan base, the Seattle Supersonics fan base, is very similar to the Golden State Valkaries fans, but they know a lot more about basketball. The Valkaries are an evolving fanship, and it feels good. And I actually had a conversation on Wednesday night when I was getting ready to coach my game, the Pro-Am. I was at a sports bar across the street, and I was having a conversation with a woman who had a Valkaries jacket on. And she and I got into a great conversation. We're watching the game on television. And ironically, she's a season ticket holder, and she had gave up her tickets to her brother so he could take one of his friends. We were having a good old time watching the game on television. She knows basketball. So it's beyond the feel-good essence of what's happening with the Valkaries. So they have some fans who really know basketball, but they're certainly an evolving fan base. Seattle's not. people in Seattle know basketball. They're going to support, they will support an expansion team like they've been there for 20 years. And I want that to happen. I want things to happen organically. All right, Vicky says, the Nets has an interest in JK too. I would like 2 of their draft picks. They got 2 draft picks, Vicky, late. And, I'm a big JK guy. And a lot of people around the league like him too. So it'll be interesting. I think because of Joe Lacob, I think the idea of the Warriors putting a solid short-term contract on the table is something that I think they can both work with. As long as the salary's around, I say 30 million. People are talking about 25. I'm like, no way. He's not signing for 25 million. No way. Cuz 1998 says, Booker would be great fit for the Warriors. Kerr had lots of praise for him when he coached him. Yeah, that's an Olympic team. Yeah, he loves him. He loves him. He loves him. This narrative, or the narrative, that Devin Booker doesn't play defense is absurd. It's crazy. We all watched him in an international setting. That guy plays defense. And there is no better coach in the NBA, in my opinion, than Steve Kerr than when it comes to comprising an offense that works for fundamentally sound basketball players. Devin Booker can shoot off the dribble. He can catch and shoot. He understands how to go back door. He can run your offense, in a half-court set. He's legit. But he's not a great, impactful leader. And guess what? With the Warriors, he wouldn't have to be. They don't need him to do that. They got great leaders. Vicky says, what does Sacramento have to do to get back to the playoffs? Wow. Lock your owner in the closet, let him come out to the games, take all business player acquisition responsibilities away from him if he has any. Let's think about this for a second. Under Babit Radadai's stewardship, he traded De'Aaron Fox. He traded Tyrese Halliburton. He gave Bogdanovich away for nothing. He didn't draft Luka, and it's been a lot of bad moves. He fired Mike Brown, the one coach who took him to the playoffs after not going for 13 or 14 years. And he fires him. Need I say more? Wow. That's just on the top of my head. I'm sure you can think of so many other things that he's done wrong. Scott Perry is a good talent evaluator. I think this team is probably, at best, 3 years from making the playoffs. Maybe 5. 3 to 5 years. They need to get an impactful leader who's in their prime. Don't tell me how good Sabonis is. Because I've seen Draymond Green at this stage of his career, for the most part, outplay him. Sabonis is a good player, but he doesn't impact the organization the way that you want your leaders to. He's a good piece. Tyrese Halliburton goes to Indiana and becomes the guy. Sabonis is not the guy in Sacramento. They don't have a guy. They need to find a guy. Rossi, how you doing? These finals weren't all that interesting to me. Probably bottom 5 finals of all time to me. Well, you got to tell me why. If you say that you like stars, I say okay, I like basketball, but tell me why. Because these games are very competitive for the most part. I like these. I like this series. I did because I like basketball. I like to see players playing up to their full potential. Do you know how much better OKC is than Indiana? Think about it. You had a guy like TJ McConnell who was on the cusp of becoming Rocky, the Rocky of basketball. Tyrese Halliburton was in the conversation. How good is he? Pascal Siakam, a team that nobody really wanted to pay. The Warriors didn't want to pay Pascal Siakam. Sacramento didn't want to pay Pascal Siakam. But you know what? If they had a redo, both of those teams might have paid him now. That dude played his ass off. So I would disagree with you. I think aesthetically for me, I don't like the color yellow. I just don't like it. Those are some of the ugliest uniforms in the Indiana Pacers. I just don't like watching their uniforms. There has to be something about that color, that uniform. They should, I mean, this is, man, I don't like it. Watching SGA develop into who he is, I like that. That was fun. Jalen Williams, I respect the hell out of his talent, but he annoys me sometimes because he's not a killer. He has all the ingredients of being a killer, but he doesn't do it all the time. My 2 favorite players to watch, SGA shot making ability and Chet Holmgren's defense and rebounding. That dude reminds me of Bill Walton. Yeah, Bill Walton. I was just driving up Highway 101 North and I saw a redwood that stood about 100,000 feet in the air. And I just had to get out of my car and go have a conversation. R.I.P. I'm a big time Bill Walton fan. But yeah, Chet Holmgren, man. That dude's gonna be all defense, perennially for years. His offense is getting better. Very impressed with him. Vicky says, poor Sacramento fans again. They have to wait. Yeah, they do have to wait. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Because, you know what's interesting, Vicky? I guarantee you that the Sacramento franchise has probably increased in value by maybe $1 billion since Vivek Ranadive purchased that team. They've increased by probably $1 billion or more. What has he done? How about zero? And yes, Sacramento has one of the best fan bases in all of the NBA. All of the NBA. Great fans up there. I wanted to address one thing that transpired that we obviously haven't talked about, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers being sold. I think the guy's name was Mike Walters. I'm sure SGA will fact check me and give me the right answer. But I just want to talk about Jeannie Buss. And I've always been a fan and respectful of Jeannie Buss. And she proved why her father, Dr. Jerry Buss, wanted her to lead the franchise after he passed. When you have a great franchise, like the Warriors, like the Lakers, like the Celtics, how can you not be emotional about it? All the highs, all of the great moments, all of the, the things that you've been able to do to employ people, the moments, how can you not be emotional about it? But then you can't be emotional about it when you're running a business. And Jeannie Buss, in spite of this connection that she had to this franchise, she was working for her dad when she was practically a teenager. When a real offer was brought to her, she had to take it seriously. In spite of not being the owner of the LA Lakers anymore, the majority owner. And what did she do? She detached herself from the emotional part of it, and she did the deal. I respect her so much. She's getting older. She's one of 6 siblings. Possibly some of those siblings have never worked a day in their lives. I don't know, but it's not unrealistic to think that that might be the case. They're like, let's get on with this. I want my whatever, 600 million, 700 million, whatever it is. So I salute her for making the right decision. They're all getting older. Maybe there's no one in the pipeline that they saw who really wanted to run the team. And they were able to keep 15% of it. So they'll be able to go to games from here until whatever. They have suites, and everybody gets paid. So I thought it was the right decision to make. I don't think that owners should. I don't think that it's ingrained in stone that owners must keep teams forever. I think somebody's gonna have to ply the Golden State Warriors from Joe Lacob. He's still in it. His son's in it. And I think they want to continue to ride this horse as long as they can. But there might be somebody out there who's willing to write a really, really big check that makes sense. That's professional sports in a nutshell. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And I think what it does also is it very clearly, I think, makes the Warriors organization the undisputed number 1 organization in the NBA. You might even say sports. You can have an argument, but in the NBA, I think it's definitely the Warriors. My Knicks are up there in terms of money, in terms of how much money they produce, and the Lakers make a lot of money. But in terms of how they function as an organization, I think the Warriors are number 1. That was even proven by some of these polls that these players vote on. The Warriors organization is high level, no doubt about that. I want to just acknowledge and you have time, send a prayer out to the great Vlade Divac, who broke his hip in a motorcycle accident. Why do basketball players ride motorcycles? Why? I mean, I'm not saying live your life in fear. And maybe Vlade didn't ride it while he was playing. But I'm okay riding like a little moped or something. I think I've passed my motorcycle driving time. If you are an expert motorcycle rider, then fine. But athletes, big guys like Vlade, who theoretically become more and more unbalanced, their nervous system, the equilibrium. I don't know what the specifics are of him getting hurt, but I don't think it's the best decision. I don't think so. Hopefully he recovers. Emi Udoka is now one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA. That does not surprise me. That guy is one of the top coaches, and it would not surprise me if Houston doesn't make it to the finals next year. Not just because they got Kevin Durant, because when you look at that team, they're actually not as good defensively now. You know, Dylan Brooks is gone. Even Jalen Green was a pretty good defender. His offense was kind of a problem. Now they have Thompson. Kevin Durant is not a good defender at this point. I'm not going to say he's below average, but he's not a good defender. Şengün is not a great defender. So I think they're going to have to kind of figure things out, and that might come back to haunt them. I can't wait to the NFL season. All right, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But when I know we just had a champion, we just crowned a champion, but when you look at that West next year, how competitive they're going to be, the West is going to be, I'm interested in seeing what the Golden State Warriors do, because clearly their success next year is going to be dictated by what they do in free agency. We've thrown some of these names around ad nauseum at this point. Brook Lopez is somebody who they're looking at, but he's also looking at the Lakers. DeAnthony Milton, we'll see how close that relationship is. They don't need a lot. The Warriors don't need a lot. They need to be healthy, and they need to go out and get some players who can complement what they have. And hopefully they can get someone who can help them with the 41st pick in the draft, which is on, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday. So we got a big week coming up for us. The Houston Rockets have until June 29th to pick up the option on Fred VanVleet's contract that's worth $44.9 million next year. I don't think they are. I think what they're going to do is they're going to not pick it up, and they're going to sign him to a 3-year deal that I think is probably around $25 million a year. So overall, you know, he'll get more money over the long haul, but they're not going to pay him $45 million next year. That's not going to happen. But I think he's done enough to put himself in good graces with the organization to hang around. As a Knicks fan, the two names that are being bantied about, Mike Brown, former Kings coach, Warrior assistant, and Taylor Jenkins, the former coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm not excited about either one of those guys. I'm not. I'm not. And I'm going to keep saying it because it bothers me. I think if you're going to coach the Knicks, you need to understand New York, right? You need to have gone through some battles. You know, if Danny Hurley wanted that job, I think he would have it. I don't know if it'd be a great fit. He's an excellent coach. It might be a train wreck, or it might be one of the most brilliant hires ever. You know, but I think if Danny Hurley wanted that job, he could get it. He don't want it. I think if Jay Wright wanted to walk up and down the sidelines of Madison Square, he could have that job. And he would be kind of interesting, even though that could blow up. But the number one guy to me is Mark Jackson. And Mark Jackson is not going to get an opportunity. That bothers me. If you are the owner of the Knicks and you have not won a championship since 1973, would you want to hire the best person for the job in spite of the politics? I'm not saying that Taylor Jenkins is not a good coach. I'm not saying Mike Brown's not a good coach. But they should be coaching some other teams, not the Knicks. They should not be coaching the Knicks. They should not be at the top of the list of who you're going to hire for the Knicks. Because of politics? It really pisses me off. TG, how are you? I am with you, Frank. Mark Jackson would be the perfect fit. I played with Mark. Biggie says Frank Red could coach the Knicks. I tell you what I could do. I could be a position coach. I tell you that. I'm not going to disrespect these brilliant coaches out there, but you think I could not be the assistant position coach of somebody to kind of learn the rigmarole? I could do that. Absolutely. I played against so many coaches who are assistant coaches in the NBA right now. But Mark would be perfect. And the reason why Mark would be a good coach for the Knicks is because Mark he's very much a cheerleader for his players. Unlike the Thibodeaus of the world, who is kind of a hard, bristled coach. We got to do it this way. Mark is not like that. Mark is like, well, what do you do well? You're right. Now I'm going to let you do what you do well, but I need you to do this for me. Cat Towns, I need you to box out. Right? I need you to be more physical. I need you to take less threes. Jalen, I need you to be a better defensive player. I'm going to help you. And I think part of it with Mark Jackson is he's so revered in New York. You know, theoretically, he could take a lot of the shine away from some of the Knicks executives and the owners and stuff like that. He would be a big star, a big-time star, and they would win. Yeah, it really bothers me. Vicky says, I'd like you to coach the post. Yeah. Yes. Some of the things, when you look at post players, you think that some things are ingrained. And then you watch players play, and Vicky, I think I got understood. He said, I'd like you to coach post. You're talking about Quinn Post? I would love to coach Quinn Post. I would love to go into the Warriors camp and have some time with him, because he's missing a lot of nuances, you know? And what some players don't understand is how you get paid. You can be a three-point shooter. There's nothing wrong with that. But how are you going to get paid? You're going to get paid playing like Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren, if you look at his percentage in threes in this series, what was it? I haven't looked at it, but it probably was around 25%, 22%. He had one game which he knocked some shots down. The rest of the games, he couldn't throw it in the ocean from beyond the arc. But his impact on the game was second to me throughout the series. I would say SGA number one, but I would say Chet Holmgren's defense and rebounding was second in terms of impact on that series. He's smaller and skinnier than Quinn Post. Vicky says Post, he doesn't like to get hit. Yeah, I know. That has to change. Thoughts of FIBA Valkaries game, play, excitement, hype. The Valkaries, I watched the first half of the game, and then I had to go coach. But the great Vicky actually sent me a message to inform me that they had won. I did not even know that they had won the game. And then I watched the highlights of the second half, and I mean, thoroughly impressed. And, Caitlin just she's not shooting the ball well right now. And that happens. In the course of a season, you're going to have ebbs and flows. But I'm a fan, man. I'm a fan. When I can reel off names, Kyrie Thornton, Veronica Burton, Carly Lake, Tiffany Hayes. I don't know if her name is Tiffany, but I know Hayes. Fele Benwale. I know a lot of these players. A lot of them. Why? Because I watch them. I am so impressed with Coach Kahase. That's the name, right? Kahase? Yeah. Love watching them play. They play egoless basketball. The ball never sticks. Why? Because they're invested in their teammates' success. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody. I mean, if you saw this coming, the Valkaries being 7-6 after 13 games, please take me to Las Vegas with you next time you go. Because I didn't see that coming. And give the players credit, give the coaching staff credit, give the general manager credit. I looked at their salary slot before I came on air tonight when I was doing some research. And Hayes, I think her name is Tiffany. Right? Tiffany makes $200,000. It's a lot of money when you consider, what is it? What do they play? 4 months? 5 months? I mean, that's a lot of dough. She's making about 40 racks a month. I'm not mad at that. But most of those young ladies are making somewhere between $70,000 and $110,000 and $120,000. You know, so they're all in it together. They just playing basketball because they love to play, not because they're making a whole lot of money. Because they're not making a whole lot of money. It's fun. I'm sure they get some other bennies for being on the team. Maybe they get free room and board, meals, you know, some endorsements. You know, so some of them are doing well. But think about playing a game that you love, you know, being revered by fans. I think they're probably getting some merchandising money now. You get an extra 20, 30 racks from merch or something like that. I don't know what they make. But this is awesome. This is a great story. And why not raise the bar? Why not raise the bar and really focus on making the playoffs? If you make the playoffs, then win a playoff game, you know? Very impressed. Very impressed. All right, my name is Frank Red. If you are listening for the first time, thank you. I appreciate you. Hit the like button if you have not done so before, and subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're a long way from that, but the ride is fun, and hopefully you think that this is a good way to spend your time on Sunday nights. We do the show starting at 9 o'clock, and we we do at least an hour, and then we kind of go from there. So we're just rolling right now. I got invited to be on some other shows tonight, and at this point, like you guys know, I'm very loyal. I'm maybe to a fault in all aspects of my life, but that's I think loyalty is one of those characteristics, one of those traits that is a non-negotiable. And you guys are loyal to me, so I'm loyal to you. I'm going to show up on Sunday nights when I say I'm supposed to, and do the show because it's fun. But it's also a sign of respect that I have for you. I reviewed a movie. I went to the movies this weekend, and I went to a movie. It's called The Materialist, and I guess it falls under the category of rom-com. Not the type of movie that I normally go to. Not for any particular reason, but I didn't pick the movie this week. My friend picked the movie, and I said, yeah, okay. So we went to the movie, and I really liked it. it was the writer and director. Her name is Celine Song, and she's talented. She wrote and directed the movie Past Lives that a lot of people liked. And this movie had a simple premise, but it's something that we can all relate to. And it caused me to kind of reflect on my own personal life. And the movie is really about, in this case, women having a set criteria for who they would date, right? You know, you got to be a certain height. You know, you have to make a certain amount of money. Maybe there's some other things that people put into a box that they have to check. But love is not necessarily at the top of the list. And I'm sure we have some people listen to the program who have been successfully married for a long time and you love it. And it'd be interesting to even figure out how that whole process works. I can't see myself ever getting married to someone where love was not number one. That has to be the number one thing. It can't be because she has a gazillion dollars or, you know, by somebody else's standards, she's the most beautiful person in the world. Because there's a normalization of all of that stuff. You know, you go out to eat, you ride in cars, you travel first, you do all those things, and they become normalized. And I think that's probably why only 50% of marriages really work long term, because there's these boxes. And what the movie was trying to say was this: own your boxes. It's okay to have your boxes. There's nothing wrong with it. But don't lie and act like these things are not important. And then you get married and you realize that love should have been number one. That's really what it's about. It's about people coming together for the right reasons and then making an authentic decision because you love someone. And from a guy's perspective, you know, if you are a guy and you ever get to a point where you feel that you're not good enough for this person, you don't need to be with that person. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care, you know, how educated you are or whatever the case. If you don't feel valued, it's not going to work. Not going to work. So when somebody makes you feel valued, then I think there's a possibility that things could actually work long term, you know? It can't be about the things. Otherwise, you're just kind of performing. I've never been with anybody who I didn't really like. I've never been with anybody who I was not enamored with as a person. Obviously, you look at them and, you know, you have to have that level of attraction. Both parties, both people, but that's really not what it's about. It's about the essence of the person. So, I would recommend The Materialist. Celine Song got excellent performances from these actors. These are some good actors. Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal is balling right now. This dude is, at this stage of his career, he's in a lot of different movies, independent joints, blockbuster, major fan of his. And I thought that Dakota Johnson, 50 Shades of whatever, I've never seen any of those movies. I thought that she was not very talented. I was wrong. I think she has evolved, but Dakota Johnson is pretty darn talented. I gotta put some respect on her name. She played the leading role, and she was really good. Really good. It's interesting that recently she's called off her engagement with the lead singer of Coldplay. And it makes you think when you watch this movie, because it kind of played out in real life. You know, it's really interesting. You know, a lot of the things I just talked about, I think might have had something to do with it. I don't know. But she was excellent. And Chris Evans was really good also. You know, he had a major role. So if you like good storytelling, I'm sure the theater was filled with women. I mean, I think they love these rom-com, romantic type movies. I just like the story, personally. So I would recommend that. All right. Let's go out. Frantic Rage. The man with my favorite name. I think you're a man. I don't know that. I was going to watch 28 Years Later, but I got COVID. Oh, man, that sucks. And I've spent most of my time resting at home. Well, Frantic, I'm going to need you to tell me what you think when you go see that movies. I generally don't go to movies to get scared. Not that that's a scary movie. I just don't know. I mean, I'm gonna wait on that, and I'm gonna have you do the review if you decide to do it, and maybe I will use that to decide if I'm gonna go watch it. TG says, Deep Thoughts with Frank Handy. Frank Handy? Who's Frank Handy? Is that me? There's a lot I don't know. I've never been married. You know, I haven't been married, and I have not had a lot of relationships in my life. I've only had, let me see. I've only had like maybe 3-4 girlfriends in my entire life. Not a lot. I mean, that's a big deal. You know, I've got to know people, you know, which is cool. It's really about the moments with me. It's really not even about like titles and stuff like that. I don't care about that. I've had some great moments with some wonderful people, and I've learned so much. But in terms of being in a lot of relationships with boyfriend and girlfriend, I haven't. So a lot of stuff is kind of fresh for me, and I love to learn, you know. So, you know, I don't know everything. I know very little. It was a Saturday Night Live skit that was Deep Thoughts. Okay, with Jack Handy. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Aussie Rules saw the 688. Good movie. Good film. I'm sorry. What is it about? 688. Vicky says you should see Friends. You think so, Vicky? Vicky, I'm going to see that then. Why will I like it, Vicky? Tell me why. Why will I like that movie? Because I was thinking about that today. I saw it on a marquee. Help me out. All right. The OKC Thunder did what not people thought that they could do 17 years ago, which is win an NBA championship. It kind of rubs egg on the faces of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. That team was more talented. Think about this. OKC had Serge Ibaka, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Steve Adams, the other guy who changed his name, went to Kentucky, number 7-footer. You know how good that team was? And I will I will go to my grave saying this also. The Warriors came back from a 3-1 deficit to beat OKC. If OKC brought that team back the following year, I think they would have won. I think they would have won the championship because they gave that series away in spite of Klay Thompson just going bonkers. And I still haven't watched the last 4 minutes of that debacle. But think about that. The Warriors were down probably 8 points with maybe less than 4 or 5 minutes to go. And I'm talking about inexplicable turnovers. I still see it in my mind playing out. Russell Westbrook, turnover, missed layup. Kevin Durant, turnover. Talk about the shift of balance. OKC gave that game away. It had nothing, and it was all on the players. And then Kevin Durant, thank you, Aussie. They had Enes Kanter coming off the bench. Are you kidding me? You think this Thunder team would beat that team? What? Really? No way. This Thunder team, this team, as good as SGA is, was he a better player than Kevin Durant at that time? Hell no. No. That was a championship team that did not win a championship. I put them in the same category as the Sacramento Kings, you know, that lost to Big Shot Bob and the Lakers. That Sacramento Kings team thoroughly outplayed the Lakers. Even in game 6, you know, if Lottie pulls that rebound down, game's over. Big Shot Rob makes that shot. They go back to Sacramento in game 7. I was there. Shaq makes 4 crucial free throws in a row. Peja Stojakovic played horrible. Doug Christie played horrible. Bibby played good. Weber played great. Vlade played good. That team was awesome. That Kings team, ooh, what a great team. Aussie Rules says, Black female unit organizing mail processing in World War II. Okay. Mail from home was not getting troops in World War II, successfully organizing mail, delivery, big moral booster, faced huge racism by commanding general. Now, was that in the theater or did you watch that in some, content provider? Because I want to, because I'd heard about it, but I need to find out where it is. All right. Thank you for that, Aussie. That was a pretty good synopsis. Pretty good. TG, Frank, some of those OKC turnovers were forced by the Warriors. The team defense went ballistic. Okay. It was a long time. I need to see it, but I mean, should you really take the ball away from a really good NBA player? I don't think so. But give the Warriors credit. But I need to watch that again because that was a debacle, dude. That was an unraveling. You know that. The Knicks were up 15 minutes and lost. I know. Yeah, Vicky, you're absolutely correct. So, good for the Warriors. I'm a strong Warrior supporter. There's no doubt about that. But all I wanted to see was OKC come back one more year. I wanted to see if they could win a championship, and then Kevin Durant could go wherever he wanted to go. I don't have a problem with him going to the Warriors. I don't. I mean, he's a 2-time champion. That's fine. But there's nothing like doing what Giannis did. Giannis won a championship in Milwaukee. Stephen Curry won 4 chips in the Bay for the Warriors. Each of them special. You know, and okay, limited theaters, also Netflix. Okay, I have Netflix. I don't really use Netflix. I need to learn how to turn it on. But I have it though. So okay, so I'm gonna watch it. Here's the. I probably got 5 minutes, but here's a conversation. This is one thing that bothers me about professional athletes, particularly NBA players, pros. And it started with LeBron. Rings don't matter to assess a player's career. Can we stop this? I mean, LeBron has this perspective because he knows that he's never going to win 6. Tracy McGrady might have a case. Allen Iverson was the only person that I can think of, and I'm a basketball historian. I would love to be wrong on this. Allen Iverson is the only player that I can remember during all these years of watching basketball that probably was in a position where he was not going to win a title. I don't care what Philly did. I don't care who they brought in. Based on the cards that they had, they were not going to beat the Lakers. They got to a finals. It doesn't mean you're not a great player. You know, winning a championship doesn't validate you being a great player. It validates you being a champion, and it matters. Sacrifice matters. Being Hartenstein and not feeling good about a coach taking you out of the starting lineup and having a positive attitude and going out and playing as well as you can and not disrupting the flow of the team. That's being a champion. There are things that you can do to help your team position itself to win a championship. And to hear some of these, I mean, Gilbert Arenas said on those Laker teams, Kobe was kind of a sidekick. No, he wasn't. He wasn't a sidekick. Kobe Bryant? Sidekick to Shaq? No way. Kobe, as young as he was, in a lot of ways, set the level of expectation for the team, for his teammates. So I think they're discounting leadership, and they don't want to talk about the non-on-court. I mean, they don't want to talk about the non-obvious components to winning, because that might say something about them. They don't even want to go there, you know, so they rather dismiss winning championships. That's a bunch of crap. Tell me somebody who was not in a position to win a championship. I looked at Dominique Wilkins, statistics. Dominique never won a championship. You know how many assists Dominique Wilkins averaged his entire career? Like 2.5. He wasn't really making his teammates better. He was a great player. He was a Hall of Famer. Just because you don't win a championship, it doesn't mean that you're not great. It doesn't mean that you're not among your best of your peers, but winning a championship entails a lot more. You think the Utah Jets, like John Stockton and Karl Malone, you think they didn't have a chance to win a championship? If Michael Jordan doesn't steal the ball from Karl Malone, they win that game. But it was the play that Michael made. A lot of these people like to have revisionist history. They like to change history because it doesn't work for them. I even heard Chris Webber, and I respect the hell out of Chris Webber. Webb was at the Fanatics conference, and he was on air talking about, well, sometimes you, as a general manager, you can't control who. Dude, that Kings team was a championship caliber team. That has nothing to do with the general manager. That had everything to do with getting a defensive rebound and finishing the Lakers. It didn't happen. Tracy McGrady played with Yao Ming, and unfortunately, there were times in which I guess Yao was hurt and Tracy was hurt, and maybe they never got together. But to unequivocally say that that Houston team wasn't good enough to win a championship, I don't know about that. I would have to go back. But there's not too many players in the history of this game when at some point they didn't have a chance to win. Maybe you could say the Indiana Pacers couldn't beat the Lakers. I don't know about that. I don't know. I saw the Detroit Pistons with Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, and I can't think of the other guy's name right now. Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace be a strong underdog against the Lakers. And what did they do? They kicked the Lakers' butt and won the championship. Won a chip. Nobody can take that from them. And they beat the bully. They beat the biggest team. Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, Gary Payton. So I don't like those conversations because they're false. You know, these are not well-rounded conversations. And then the Stephen A's of the world, or anybody who didn't play, or the Stephen A's or anyone who didn't play in the league gets shouted down, or you don't know. You didn't play. Well, you really don't know. You didn't play in the league. And that's crap. It's a discussion based off facts. Allen Iverson, maybe Tracy McGrady. Name somebody else that was hampered to the point where they were a great Hall of Fame caliber player and never got an opportunity to win a championship. Let's go back to the Boston Celtics in 08, I guess, whenever that 07 or 08. That team was put together. Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. They won the chip. They won. Anything is possible. They don't have to win two. They won one. Hakeem Olajuwon, Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell. When Mike was on his hiatus, they won. They beat my Knicks. I like to have real conversations. TG says, Frank, I have a ridiculous hypothetical for you that would never happen, but as a Knicks fan, would you take Kerr as your coach and then trade Brunson and Bridges for Steph and Pods? Hell yeah. I mean, just give me Steph. I don't have to have Pods. I don't have to have Pods. If he's a part of it, fine. Yeah, it is ridiculous, but it's fun to think about. It'd be interesting to see if Kerr would play well in New York. I would love this. If any team, I would love to see Kerr coach OKC. I think they can win 3 straight with him as a coach. I do. I think he would have took care of Indiana in maybe 5 games. But Stephen Curry in New York? Are you kidding me? Come on, man. You know how hard the Knicks tried to get Stephen Curry? They wanted him so bad. And Don Nelson was like, you know what? Don't waste your dime. We're not trading this guy. Frantic Ray says, some of the haters saying Curry was KD's sidekick. It was the other way around. Yeah, that's just stupid. That's ridiculous. Curry is the ultimate gentleman as a teammate. And he's about winning. He's about winning. He wasn't going to force it. KD was awesome. He is awesome. Curry doesn't care about that. What you should ask the question is, in the biggest moments, how did Curry perform? He's always come up big. And I would say in 2022, he won a chip for the Warriors when they were not the best team. He took that series over. Took it over. And the finals MVP that Iguodala won, hey, man, congratulations. I would have gave it to Curry. Well said. Curry just let him have the lead role. Yeah, he wasn't tripping off of that, man. Part of the reason why I think Kevin Durant left is he knew he could never be bigger than Curry in the Bay. Never. Never. No player will ever, and this is hyperbole because we don't know. I'm going to say never. There will never be a bigger star than Stephen Curry who wears a Golden State Warrior uniform. How about never? During my lifetime. To cover myself a little bit. Vicky says, it had everything to do with a ref. That series was fixed. Again, poor Sacramento. How does the ref have anything to do with getting a rebound, Vicky? That's all they needed was a rebound. That ball kicked out the big shot Rob and it was over. Vicky, you are so right. Didn't that ref end up admitting it was all? Oh, wow. Really? Wow. All right, everybody. This has been a really good show. Thank you. We've been going for almost an hour and 40 minutes, and it felt like 30 to 60 minutes. I want to thank you for hanging in there. I appreciate y'all. Really, I never heard that. Vicky says, Iggy always said Steph won the MVP. That's generous of him. I don't think he's going to give it back, and I wouldn't. I'm happy for Iguodala, but just watching it, I would give it to Steph. Thank you, Vicky. I really thank you. Thank you for your support. And everybody else out there, I appreciate y'all. Hit the like button and subscribe to the show. And yeah, I look forward to doing the next one. Any time that there's something topical that necessitates that I step in the dungeon on a non-Sunday, I will do it. Now, we have the NBA draft coming up on Wednesday. I don't think I'm going to be on a draft show because I coach on Wednesday, but I'm going to have a draft recap. That's what I'm going to do. So be on the lookout for a show from me maybe on Thursday, because I'm going to give you a recap of what I thought of what I think about the draft. All right? Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. TG, thank you for the like. And thank you for your comments. Great times watching your show, man. All right. RC Rules says, thanks, Frank. I want you guys to answer the question, too. Where do you watch the show? Do you watch the show on a computer? Do you watch it on your phone? How do you access the show? Let me know that. All right. That helps me out with like data. I'm actually going to engage in some video editing this week. I'm going to learn how to do some editing so I can start putting out some shorts. So that would be kind of cool. Thank you, TG. YouTube, computer. Let's think about Sunday nights. Appreciate y'all. All right, let me do my thing and get out of here. Success and getting paid is a manifestation of the whole process. If you as an individual don't do things to help other people make their lives better, As far as I'm concerned, you haven't done nothing. All right, hit the like button, subscribe to the show. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Indiana versus Golden State game. Is that the California Classic? All right. Good night, everybody. Peace out.